What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Heel Deal Podcast. You're back with your hosts, Ben and Zach, as usual. Zach, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Semester's getting there. For all of you who don't know, we're students here, so we got all the work that comes with enjoying UNC sports, right?
Yeah. It's always tough academic time in October, so yeah, we're dealing with that along with the sports drama.
Yeah, so speaking of the sports drama, of course, we're recording this right off the wake of that sixth overtime crushing loss to Virginia Tech. So, of course, we're going to be getting into that for you guys, all of you who are listening and want to relive that pain with us. We got a breakdown of all of that. So, of course, we're going to start with the rundown of all the other sports going on right now, talk about Virginia Tech, what went right and what went wrong, and then move on to our Duke preview. So we've got rivalry game against Duke coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun, right, Zach?
Yeah, you're looking forward to it. We always say go to hell Duke at the end of all of our podcasts for a reason, and this week it's amplified, so yeah.
Exactly. Now we got to put our money where our mouth is.
That's right.
So anyway, why don't we get right into the rundown? So men's soccer, since our last upload, which was a little more than a week ago, they've had one game against Wake Forest. They lost that 0-1, so they're sitting at 7-4-2 overall, 3-3 in the conference. So not phenomenal. They're on a 2-game losing streak, so hopefully they can bounce back from that. But going on to the much more dominant women's sports,
Yep.
UNC field hockey is still perfect. They're 14-0. They picked up wins against Albany 4-1, Wake Forest 3-1, and Liberty 3-2. So they're showing no signs of slowing down. They're easily the best team in the country.
Yeah.
Women's soccer likewise is playing amazing too. They're 13-1-1 overall, so they're 6 wins, 0 losses, and 1 tie in the conference. Their last few games, they played Pittsburgh, they won 3-1, and then Boston College, they won 3-0. So they're going out there and dominating everything. The only blemish on their conference record right now is the double overtime tie against Duke.
Yeah, and big one. I'm looking there against Florida State coming up on October 24th, as you know.
Yeah, that's a title rematch, right?
I believe so. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that'll be probably deciding the ACC right there.
Shoot, yeah, that's in Chapel Hill. So if anyone's in the area, that's going to be October 21st. That's a Thursday at 7 p.m. So honestly, try and go to that. It'll be a great game.
Yep, on the 24th. I hope we get a good turnout for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move straight into it, Zach. You ready to relive that experience?
It was an experience, dude. I'm thankful that I had the chance to go. My girlfriend and I and her family went up there for the weekend, so had a chance to see the game, go to the stadium and everything. It's a cool stadium by all means. Very enjoyable atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just watching it was a heartbreaker, but there were good things that the Tar Heels did. It's just really like the result hurts us, especially since we've talked about it before. We're in contention not just for a bowl, but for the Coastal Division of the ACC. So it's kind of puts a damper on that, right?
Yeah, it makes it a lot tougher. We certainly, going into this game, we kind of controlled our own destiny, and now we have to rely on some of the things that happen for us to come out champions of the Coastal Division.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. But why don't we talk about the good things before we get into the bad? What did UNC do on offense and defense that worked against Virginia Tech?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. Starting with the offense, I mean, we can start with Sam Howell, obviously, like we normally do. I mean, his stat line is unbelievable. I mean, he threw the ball 49 times, completed 26 of them for basically 350 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, dude, 5 touchdowns. I mean, this guy is just going crazy this season. He's almost like not getting enough hype just considering how great he's been. Let me pull up his stats right now. He is, great completion percentage, basically 150 for 250, so that's phenomenal right now. It's up over 60%. 1,892 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. That's the big thing that stands out. He is throwing tons of touchdowns. Credit to our receiving core, but he's also limiting the mistakes that you'd expect from a freshman, man. 3 interceptions for someone who throws at the volume that he does is kind of wild.
Yeah, and let me tell you, kind of in the context of the Virginia Tech game, that is we talked about it last week, but that is an extremely hard place to play. Mm-hmm. And boy, was it ever on Saturday afternoon. And so the fact that he's able to stand in there as an 18-year-old kid, basically, and I hate to call him a kid, he's sitting here, but and be able to deliver under pressure like that and throw for 5 touchdowns and no picks. And really, to be honest with you, there weren't any passes that were, so close to being picked either. It wasn't like he had a couple close calls either. I mean, everything was pretty crisp. And further talking about the offense, man, I'm going to go as far as to say, and I know this is tough because we lost this game and there were some opportunities down the stretch that the offense had that they weren't able to capitalize on, but I think this is our most complete offensive performance of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we had the rushing yards down there. Michael Carter was great this game.
Right.
Daz played a fantastic game. I mean, Diami had a good game.
Yeah, pretty much all receivers got involved.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I looked
Rontavious
up,
Groves had a touchdown. They were all in
Groves
there.
had one, and Antoine Green caught the double reverse flea flicker that Sam threw. That was just an unbelievable play, by the way. So, I mean, we had everybody getting involved here. Pretty much every receiver on the roster that gets any playing time was involved with this game, and it really made it tough on Virginia Tech to single down a couple targets to really zero in on. And we'll talk a little bit about their defense and stuff later that may have helped with that. But our offense, speaking as a whole, run was really nice. Pass was great. Offensive line played well. They kept Sam upright at least until later in the game when Virginia Tech started dialing up some pressure on him because they had no choice. I mean, the guy had already thrown for 5 touchdowns. I mean, what else do you expect?
Yeah.
So, but overall, I think this was a really good performance by the offense.
Yeah, and I mean, it just makes it all the worse that our defense. The defense held us in there. We had the chances, and eventually in overtime, it kind of came down to our offense who didn't produce. But it's just a bummer that Sam's game kind of goes to waste for a loss in 6th overtime.
Yeah, it's tough, and you're right. The offense had its opportunities down the stretch. We had I think it was in the 3rd overtime, we had the opportunity there to just get any points at all because they had missed a field goal after getting the ball first in that overtime, and all we had to do was kick a field goal or get anything out of it, and we played kind of conservative in that overtime as you would expect. But the holding call that we had on that drive backed us up, and Noah just wasn't able to knock down the field goal. So, but then the 2-point conversion calls, that they weren't bad play calls. One that I'll talk about really quick was the one I think it was in 5th overtime. It was the fake power sweep with I think it was Javante, maybe in a receiver, and then it was a toss back to the weak side to Michael.
I mean, it would have worked great if there wasn't a player just waiting there.
But that's the thing, though, is that there was one guy.
Yeah.
There was one guy. And if that Virginia, I think it was number 8 for Virginia Tech. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think he's a safety. But if he doesn't see that, if he takes 1 yard further into the line, just bites on that thing for 1 second, he doesn't have the angle to get to Michael before he has speed. I mean, it's literally just him and that guy, and he cut him off perfectly where he had to cut back and try to get inside, and then by then the dogs had caught up to him basically. So I mean, it wasn't I didn't think it was a bad play call. A lot of people have said it was a bad play
I think it was more of a good defensive play.
Great instinctive play by that safety or linebacker, whatever he was. He made a big time play there because that was really a one guy to beat. But overall, like we said, offense played well. I just hate we couldn't have gotten the win.
Yeah, right. And I mean, you mentioned Noah Ruggles, who had the opportunity to send us home with the win, and that went just very, very slightly to the right of the goalpost, I think, if I recall correctly.
And I think it actually hit the little orange flag that's up on top of it, or at least it made it blow past because it was moving so quickly.
I mean, it's a game of inches, but apparently Mac has chosen to move on with Jonathan Kim, who's our second string kicker, if you want to call him that.
Yeah,
so,
I think he's a walk-on freshman too, which I'm not really sure if I agree with that on its face because of what it's going to do to Noah's psyche after missing 2 field goals in overtime. Which I mean, I get it, right? I mean, he hasn't been great all year, but I don't think he's been terrible. So we'll see. Hopefully, this guy that they put in there can do some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, if Kim can kick, then he can kick. But I mean, I just think of like Ruggles, like his time in the spotlight, like what was the game he missed the game tying field goal?
That was this year.
Yeah. Was that App?
Yeah, but that was a deep field.
That was a deep one, but he's missed all the big opportunities.
Yeah.
So to win us the game this time, to tie the game, and App
didn't App block that though?
Yeah, but I mean low trajectory on that.
I get your point though.
So we'll see how Jonathan Kim does. It might be a permanent move. They might move back to Ruggles, give him this mountain to kind of climb over and get his mind right. But as we all know, it's a tough job for him. But let's talk about the defensive side of the ball for the Tar Heels. Yeah. What did they struggle with? Because they did struggle.
Well, Virginia Tech's got a good running game with McLeese and then Hendon Hook early in the game. They were able to really get some yardage there. Hazleton had a great game. They went after Storm Duck a lot in man-to-man coverage, which didn't shock me. The Tar Heels, and we'll talk about some stuff in the later second half here in a minute, but because of a lot of man coverage being played by the Tar Heels on big receivers like Hazleton, he ended up getting matched up on our more inexperienced corners like Greg Ross and Storm Duck, who he has a lot of size on, and they were able to score on two basic, back shoulder fades to him, both of which were phenomenal catches. I think both of them were with one hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't easy for him to make them at all, and one of them was in overtime. Do you remember that one? It was literally like 4th and 2.
Oh yeah.
And if they don't get it, it's over. We win, and they have the guts to throw like a 20-yard pass.
It was just the most beautiful pass and the most beautiful catch.
And he caught it with one hand.
Yeah.
Greg Ross is literally holding his arm down. It's going to be a pass interference regardless of whether he catches it or not. They're going to get the first down. But he catches it with one hand completely. I mean, there wasn't any question about it. And, but the play call there just blew my mind. I'm sitting up in the stands thinking, oh, my God, the guts it takes to call that in that situation. I mean, that is by no means a high percentage play. In that situation. So, but yeah, I mean, our defense, they struggled down the stretch. I think a big thing was, though, is that, as you know, Ben, and a lot of people who were listening, the quarterback situation for Virginia Tech on Saturday was a revolving door. I mean, it started with Hooker. I think he went down with a high ankle sprain. They put in Ryan Willis, which I learned pretty quickly from being at Virginia Tech is not a popular decision amongst Hokie fans. So then they took him out after, I think, 2 or 3 drives, and they put in Quincy Patterson. So I don't think Quincy had seen any time really all year. But they put him in. He's like Cam Newton's size.
Yeah.
So the go-to play with him was a quarterback power sweep, where basically he just snaps a ball and runs outside C-gap. And all the offensive linemen, tight ends, a lot of times it was out of 12 personnel, so it was running back 2 tight ends, and they just slanted everything to the right or left along with the H-back and just dug out all of the defensive linemen. Just went up and dug them out and created a wall and just let him shoot a gap wherever it opened.
Yeah, so I mean, even if you know that play's coming, it's like, what can you do?
It's tough. I mean, and it brings up the relevance of the man coverage that we had to play. Because we're having to respect that so much, and because he is so big and hard to bring down, we can't really devote any more people to the receivers they do line up. We're having to play cover 0 essentially a lot of times, or if not cover 1 with Miles in the middle.
Yeah.
So we were having to we were having to respect a lot. I give Virginia Tech credit. Had they not been able to be successful on some of those man coverage exploitations with Hazleton on Storm and stuff like that, maybe we would have sent an extra guy than we ended up doing later in the game. But eventually it wore us out.
Yeah.
It wore us out. And it was the same play over and over again, but it's one thing to know it's coming, but then it's another thing to stop it.
Exactly. I mean, we've gone into so much depth about the depth on our defense, but
it's thin.
I mean, Clemson gave me hope that like maybe we can, draw something up in the scheme that helps take the pressure off some of these more vulnerable positions, but this game for me really showed how thin we are at certain positions.
Yeah.
I mean, our secondary was just beaten up, honestly.
Yeah, we're thin, and they made good plays though. I don't want to disregard how well the defense played in certain situations, because they did get off the field on 3rd down a couple big times. They got 2 turnovers too.
Yeah.
That's one thing I had forgotten about when I was leaving the game. We turned the ball over twice, both on fumbles. And, the offense, I don't think on either one of those possessions was able to get more than a field goal. But still, I mean, they're doing what they can. And I'll just say one more note about this before we kind of move to a little bit on Virginia Tech and then we go to Duke. But, think about what the team last year would have done in this environment. Think about how far we've come in a year's time. Because last year's team, it didn't matter if we were playing a talented team like Tech or anybody else. They would have never had the mental toughness to go to 6 overtimes and compete like that long. I mean, they just wouldn't have had it in them. They would have probably gotten to the first overtime and lost because they felt like that was already, that was as long as they were supposed to have been playing. So I just want to say I'm really proud of the team's fight and how they were able to stay in there for as long as the game lasted against a very, very good team that Virginia Tech has.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, even Mac went out and said this week, like, this is a team that's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Especially maybe, but hopefully next season. But the season after that, I mean, we have Sam Howell at least till he's a junior, and he's a true freshman right now. This is going to be a great team, and 5-star defensive end Desmond Evans, who's number 2 on ESPN's overall board, not just for defensive ends, not just North Carolina, overall committed to North Carolina for 2020. So we have these recruiting pieces. We're going to have the experience. So right now, I'm okay with going through this learning curve or these growth pains.
Yeah, Desmond is the second highest player that Carolina football has ever gotten, according to most recruiting platforms. The only guy who we've ever gotten, everybody, who has a higher rating coming into college than Desmond does was Marvin Austin in 2007, who was the number 1 overall player coming out of the 2007 high school class. So that's what it took to outrate this guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just going to be awesome to have him next year and the year after that and the year after that. So this is a team that's growing, it's maturing. Yeah. We're not going to compete for the national championship this year. I think we all knew that coming into it. But next year, I think the Coastal is going to be within our grasp.
Yeah, we basically have everybody coming back minus a couple key pieces on both offense and defense. I mean, we lose Strobridge, we lose Crawford, we lose Miles Dorn, and we lose Charlie Heck. But outside of those 4 guys, and Polino, but Polino's been hurt already. But outside of those 4 or 5 guys, we have the opportunity, of course, as long as no one tests the NFL waters, to get everybody back.
Yeah.
Everybody. That's every receiver. You know, Daz, Diami, Bo, Antoine, Rontavius, all those guys, all back. Sam back, Javonte back, Michael back. I mean, you can just literally name everyone, and we're going to all be back. So, yeah, like you were saying, exciting time, looking forward to the future and what we can do then.
Yeah, exactly. Max setting us up for success. But why don't we move away from that heartbreaking game and look at next week's game against Duke? This is where we can get back on track. So what are some of your initial thoughts looking at this game, Zay?
Well, you know, Duke is an interesting team. You know, you and I were talking a little bit off air about how, you know, they're a little bit inconsistent this year. They're not a team that has, you know, come to play at the same level, at least not from my perspective, week in and week out. Specifically with their offense, you know, Quentin Harris, their graduate quarterback, is also their leading rusher. He is used in a lot of ways. They use him to scramble. They use him in some option looks. They let him throw the ball as well. Duke's offense runs everything from a traditional triple option look where they may throw out of it, they may run out of it, all the way to empty looks with 4 receivers or maybe 3 receivers, a running back, a tight end, 4 receivers, a tight end. It's a lot of different personnel groupings that they throw at you, and that's just looking at a small sample size of their film from the year. So, you know, they show a lot of different things to start with. I think that's going to be the first challenge for the defense is trying to identify what defense they're going to be in because of how many looks and personnel groupings that the offense is going to present to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be up to this defensive coaching staff to get these guys ready. And like I said, with the depth we currently have, it's going to be all hands on deck for this one.
Yeah, you know, it definitely will. And a big reason for that, talking about personnel for Duke, is a guy named Noah Gray. He's the tight end. And what's interesting about Noah Gray, he's 6'4", 280. So he's obviously a matchup problem.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a big dude.
Yeah, and I hope he doesn't go on Storm Duck, I'll tell you that.
Hopefully we won't let them
Poor
create
Storm.
that matchup. And I don't think that will end up happening because in all the film I've watched of Duke, he lines up either in the slot or he lines up at a traditional tight end.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of that depends on what kind of pressure the opposing defense is showing or what kind of defense they're in, period. With us being in a 3-4, I expect him to be in traditional tight end a little bit just to try to offset a little bit of that outside linebacker play because you don't want those guys running for your quarterback.
Yeah.
So, because then at that point, all it takes is one inside linebacker blitzing, and you have an unblocked defensive end. So, if you don't have the tight end in there to help, so I think they'll use him in there a little bit, but he'll also split out depending on if we run some quarters, some dollar looks on defense. Then he'll go out there and he'll try to create mismatches on our linebackers.
Yeah,
which is really what concerns me because they did that against Virginia Tech and they had tremendous success. You know, there really wasn't anyone on Tech's team that could cover him. He was a big reason why they blew them out. Yeah,
but I mean, going back to Duke's schedule, they really have been inconsistent. They blew out Virginia Tech in week, was that 2? Well, 45-10.
Yeah, it may not have been week 2, but it was a while ago. Yeah, nonetheless, yeah.
So they blew them out 45-10. They went and lost against Pitt. They beat Georgia Tech, and they got destroyed by UVA. So it's really, really hard to predict exactly what we're going to get.
Yeah, true. Very, very true. I mean, and you know, that's what makes us a toss-up, you know, and what better way for it to be than the rivalry, you know? I mean, this is obviously not as big of a rivalry in football as it is in basketball.
Yeah.
You know, we'll take it for what it is. But yeah, this is a game that I could see going many different ways, largely due to their offensive versatility and their inconsistency as well. So defense is going to have a lot to think about this week. I don't think this will be the hardest team to stop once we figure out what they're doing, but it'll be a hard team to diagnose what you're doing, and it's going to be tough to prevent the tight end in particular from creating any mismatch on people, because we do run a lot of 3-4, so that means it's going to be one-on-one with a safety that's having to play off coverage, or it's going to be one-on-one with a linebacker, or we're going to have to switch personnel groupings, which then opens up other things.
Yeah, but I mean, say you're UNC's defensive coordinator, what do you do in this situation to eliminate this tight end, or at least, you know, stop him from running rampant?
Well, you have to show him look. You have to show them looks, and you have to send enough pressure to where they need him to block. Mm-hmm. You want him to have to stay in the block, and even if that's him having to stay in for a minute to chip before he goes out for his route, anything to keep him from just getting off the line really quickly. You know, you can look at all the NFL great tight ends, and what is the key to trying. To stopping them. It's, you know, the same thing I think we'll have to do with Noah Gray. It's you can't let them get a clean release off the line. You can't let them get a clean release if they're lining up at slot. You can't let them get a clean release if they're lining up at a traditional tight end. You have to give them something else to think about. You have to make them pick up a blitz. You have to make them deal with a jam. You have to make them do something to where it's not so clean where they can just get up to the second level and use their size. Because we don't want this guy up on our safeties all day. I promise you we don't. I mean, Miles is really good, guys. But 6'4", 280 is hard to cover.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy's a really good receiver, too. He's got good hands. So, and he's a veteran player. So I definitely think he'll create some trouble. But, yeah, I say send some pressure. You know, show some looks where he has to, at least he thinks he has to stay in the block. You know, don't let them get comfortable with running a lot of 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, all split out, and 1 back formation. So, yeah, I just think the defense has got to make him respect our ability to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But on the other side of that ball, how do we keep things rolling from an offensive perspective? How do we take advantage of Duke's defense? Yeah,
Duke's defense is a little interesting. They run a lot of 4-2-5. At least they did against a lot of Virginia and Virginia Tech's looks. Those are the 2 big games I watched. And whenever both those teams would run a lot of 3 wide receivers, tight end looks, kind of like what we do, where you have a 1 running back beside the quarterback, you have 3 receivers, maybe a running back or a tight end as the 4th guy, something like that. You get my point. A spread look, basically. They would run a lot of 4-2-5 looks. They're not running a 3-4 like we do or like Virginia Tech did. So it'll be a little bit of different there. More designed to stop the pass, but I think that gives us an opportunity to try to keep, you know, another opportunity to keep Sam up. You know, you traditionally don't have as much trouble passing the ball. You know, pass rush is not as prevalent in those formations typically. But, you know, they've ran, you know, some different stunts and stuff just like most teams do. So we'll have to be disciplined up front to make sure they don't confuse our offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this, man, really could go either way. And I'm interested to hear about what your prediction is for this game in a few minutes here. But as far as, like, what ESPN's thinking, their power or football power index has us winning at 65%. But, you know, last week they had us up over 70% or something like that. They had us favored very highly against Virginia Tech. So, and we have the line at 3.5 points. So we're the 3.5 point favorite. Do you think the home field advantage is going to play into this at all, it being back in Keenan?
It should, man. I mean, look, I mean, I hate to say it this way, guys, but I mean, Ben and I have had the privilege of being at every one of our home games up to this point, and we can both tell you that, you know, maybe with the exception of the Miami game, both Clemson and App State, you know, there were a lot of fans of the other team in there.
Oh, yeah.
And our team can feel that. Now, we had a lot of Tar Heel fans in both of those games, but especially the App State game. You know, those fans came and they were loud. And my point in saying all that is that I think that this is a game where we get back to where we can't hear the opposing team's fans. I mean, no offense to Duke, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it's not exactly a football school. We're not either. Okay, I'm not getting at that. I'm just saying that Duke football has traditionally not had a very big following. You can even look at some of their years where they've been ranked, when they had Daniel Jones last year and stuff, where they can't fill up their stadium for a night game. So, I mean, you're not going to tell me they're going to travel strong to Chapel Hill on a team that's just got blown out by Virginia. So I don't see a lot of Duke fans showing up. If they do, I think it'll be more of a formality because they hate UNC. But yeah, I mean, point is, I think we'll have a very good, strong home field advantage in this game. I think the fans will come out for the Tar Heels, and we will definitely feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to play a big role in this. Just the way that the team has fed off the energy at being at home, especially the game we beat Miami. It's like it was like a magical experience in there, and so the players love that. Mac loves that. So hopefully that'll give them the edge over the Blue Devils. But as we wind up this episode, Zach, finish the sentence, man. Tar Heels are going to win if they do what?
Well, I think it's identify what Duke is doing offensively, prevent mismatches with Noah Gray, and find a way to get pressure on Quentin Harris where he can't use his legs to beat you. Kind of a similar blueprint to what we've had the last two games, but a little bit different because they do have that huge weapon that neither Georgia Tech or Virginia Tech had in Noah Gray. Mm-hmm. So we got to identify where he is. We got to match up with him. We've got to think of ways to neutralize him, not let him off the line easily. Not let him create a condensed field where receivers are playing one-on-one with all of our small corners. We don't want that either. So I think it comes down to him, identify him, get to Quentin Harris.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I think it's just going to be, does this team have a short memory? Can we get over 6 overtimes? We're the first schools or the first game where we've tested out this new overtime thing. Where after 5 overtimes, it's a 2-point conversion competition. This is the longest ACC game in history. Yeah. So can they get over that heartbreak and bounce back to beat a team that they hate, to beat a school that they hate?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think the offense will roll, though. I think our offense rolls. I think they take the momentum they had at Virginia Tech. They're going to be pissed they didn't win it there at the end. So I think they roll. But yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Give me a score then.
Score prediction for me, I think ultimately the defense will have some trouble with this Duke offense, but I think we will outscore them. I think our offense will roll in this game. I really do. Duke has got a respectable defense, but I think we roll on them. I've got the Heels 37-28.
All right. Yeah, for me personally, I feel the same way. I think we can bounce back from this. And I think we're going to win, too. I think it's going to be a little more low-scoring, but I think it's going to be 28-21. I don't think we're scoring any field goals this game. Kim's got to have a warm-up game, man.
All right, cool deal.
But gosh, I guess as we wrap this up, go to hell Duke is more important than ever, right?
More amplified this week than any other week so far this year. Thanks for listening, guys. Sorry for the late upload this week, but as always, go to hell Duke.
Go to hell Duke.